It's 5:52 in the morning on the 24th of May, 1941, in the icy waters of the Denmark Strait between Greenland and Iceland. The British battle cruiser HMS Hood and the brand new battleship Prince of Wales close in on two German raiders slipping out into the Atlantic. One of them is the battleship Bismarck, Germany's newest and most feared warship. Enemy in sight, bearing green 40. Within minutes, a single German shell finds Hood's magazine, and the pride of the Royal Navy vanishes in a colossal fireball. Of over 1,400 men aboard, only 3 survive. Prince of Wales, badly damaged herself, breaks off the action, and word of the disaster races back to London. Winston Churchill gives the Admiralty a single order: sink the Bismarck. In the hours after Hood's loss, the cruisers, Norfolk and Suffolk, shadow Bismarck through fog and squalls, radioing her position back to the Admiralty every few minutes. But late on the 25th of May, Bismarck executes a sharp turn in heavy weather, and the shadowing cruisers lose her completely. For over 30 hours, the most powerful fleet the Royal Navy can gather searches an empty ocean, and in London, there is real fear that Bismarck has slipped away for good, bound for the safety of occupied France, where U-boats in the Luftwaffe could shield her forever. Then, on the morning of the 26th of May, a lumbering RAF Catalina flying boat breaks through the clouds and spots her wake far below. Enemy battleships sighted, bearing 195. The chase is back on, but Bismarck now has a healthy lead, and unless something slows her down, she will reach Brest long before the British battleships can catch her. 3 days after Hood's loss, Bismarck is still loose in the Atlantic, but she is no longer running free. She is being hunted. On the evening of the 26th of May, in gale force winds and driving rain, 15 ferries swordfish biplanes lumber off the pitching deck of the aircraft carrier Ark Royal. They are slow and fabric covered, and by any measure they belong to an earlier war, but they are Britain's last chance to slow Bismarck down before she reaches the safety of occupied France. Torpedo running. Stand by. Diving low through the flak, one of the swordfish crews lines up a shot, and their torpedo strikes Bismarck's stern, jamming her twin rudders hard over. Rudders jammed, sir. We can't steer. Aboard the German battleship, engineers and divers work through the night in a desperate attempt to free the rudder, but the sea is too rough and the damage is too severe. Bismarck can now only steam in wide, helpless circles. All through the night, British destroyers close in and harass her with torpedoes and gunfire, denying her crew any rest, and by dawn, on the 27th of May, 1941, the battleship HMS Rodney finally has her prey in sight. Aboard Rodney, Captain Frederick Dalrymple Hamilton stands on the bridge, watching the crippled giant limp helplessly on the horizon. His ship is old, her engines are worn thin from years of hard steaming, and she was meant to be crossing the Atlantic for a long overdue refit in America when she was ordered, instead, into the hunt. But Rodney carries something no other British battleship afloat can match. 9 16-inch guns, mounted in 3 turrets, all mounted forward of the bridge. They were never meant for her. 20 years earlier, they were designed for a class of battle cruiser that was cancelled on the drawing board, scrapped under the terms of the Washington Naval Treaty, before a single hull was ever laid down. Rather than waste guns the Navy had already paid for, the design office simply bolted them onto a smaller, cheaper hull and called it Rodney. Leftover guns, on what many considered a leftover ship. Enemy in sight, bearing green 45. Distance, 23,000 yards. Rodney's gunnery officer studies Bismarck through his binoculars. Nearby, the newer battleship, King George V, takes up position too, her 10 14-inch guns representing the very latest word in British naval engineering. On paper, she should be the star of this fight, but it is Rodney, the leftover ship with the leftover guns, that closes fastest on the enemy, and it is Rodney that Admiral John Tovey trusts to strike first. Open fire. At 8:47, Rodney's forward turrets roar to life, and great tongues of flame leap from her barrels. The shells, each one weighing over a ton, arc high into the gray morning sky. Aboard Bismarck, her captain watches the muzzle flashes bloom in the distance, and he knows there is little he can do. His ship cannot maneuver. She can only fire back and hope. All guns return fire. Bismarck's 8 15-inch guns, newer and faster firing than Rodney's, and by German engineering standards, considered among the finest in the world, answer with a full salvo. The shells scream low across the water and straddle Rodney, throwing towering columns of spray just short of her hull. Near miss, sir. She's found our range. Dalrymple Hamilton doesn't flinch. Steady, keep firing. Minutes later, King George V's own guns begin to falter, one turret jamming, then another, drill errors and mechanical failures plaguing her brand new mountings. It is Rodney, not her modern companion, that carries the weight of the battle. For a ship built under treaty restrictions, stripped down and starved of weight to satisfy a peace agreement signed almost 20 years earlier, Rodney was never supposed to be a match for Germany's newest and most advanced battleship. But her guns, however old, however unloved by naval planners of the 1920s, are heavier than anything Bismarck carries, firing a broadside far greater than her opponents. And they're about to prove it. At 9:02, a shell from Rodney slams directly into Bismarck's forward turrets. The explosion tears through steel and men alike, and within moments, both of her forward guns fall silent. Forward turrets destroyed. No response from Anton and Bruno. Aboard Bismarck, chaos spreads through the ship as fires rage and the wounded are dragged below. Her rear turrets keep firing, but with half her main armament gone, the German salvos grow wild and inaccurate. Rodney's closing the range, sir. Dalrymple Hamilton, sensing the kill, orders his ship even nearer, defying the traditional wisdom that battleships should trade blows at long distance. Close the range. Let's finish this properly. Rodney presses forward, and the gap between the two battleships shrinks to little more than 3 miles, then 2, then less than 1. At such close quarters, her 16-inch shells strike almost flat, punching through Bismarck's armored belt like it isn't there at all. Direct hit amidships. Below decks, fires spread uncontrollably, and entire compartments flood as the German crew fight a losing battle against the sea and the flames. Her captain, walking the deck to encourage his men, is caught in an explosion and is never seen again. Still, Bismarck's remaining gun crews fight on, firing whatever rounds they can, aiming with whatever fire control still functions. She's still firing, sir. Rear turret still active. Keep firing. Don't let up. Rodney's guns answer again and again, and now she is so close her crews can see German sailors on Bismarck's deck, scrambling for cover that no longer exists. By 9:30, Bismarck's guns have finally gone silent. Every turret is wrecked, and her upper decks are a tangle of twisted, burning steel. But somehow, she is still afloat. She won't sink, sir. We've hit her with everything we've got. Tovey orders the heavy cruiser, Dorsetshire, to finish the job with torpedoes. Send in Dorsetshire. Let's put her under. Dorsetshire closes in and fires her torpedoes into Bismarck's battered hull, and at 10:39, the great German battleship finally rolls onto her side and slips beneath the Atlantic. Sailors aboard Dorsetshire and the destroyer, Maori, throw ropes and nets over the side, and dozens of German survivors, coated in oil, cling to the lines and are hauled aboard. But the rescue is cut brutally short. Submarine contact. Possible U-boat. Bearing green 90. Fearing a U-boat attack on the stationary rescue ships, the British captains are forced to abandon the effort and get underway, leaving hundreds of German sailors still in the freezing water. Of a crew of over 2,000 men, fewer than 200 are pulled out alive. For HMS Rodney, the battle marks the unlikely triumph of a career many thought was already behind her. Her worn engines, patched together for one more mission, carry her onward to America for the long overdue refit she had been denied. She would go on to support the Allied landings in North Africa during Operation Torch, the invasions of Sicily and Italy, and the Normandy landings in June of 1944, before finally being decommissioned and scrapped in 1948. Her sister ship, Nelson, carried the very same leftover design and served with similar distinction throughout the war. Together, they remain the only British battleships ever built between the two world wars, a direct consequence of the very treaty that had once tried to cancel their guns altogether. The original ships those guns were designed for, a class of 4 massive battle cruisers known only by the code name G3, would have been among the largest and most heavily armed warships in the world, but not one of them was ever laid down. When the Washington Naval Treaty capped the size of new capital ships in 1922, the entire G3 program was scrapped overnight, and years of design work, along with the 16-inch guns already ordered for them, were left with nowhere to go. Naval planners, unwilling to let the investment go to waste, simply redesigned a smaller hull around the existing guns, and in doing so, created Rodney and Nelson, two battleships built, quite literally, around leftover weapons from a warship that was never built at all. Those guns, dismissed for years as outdated relics from a battle cruiser that was never built, had done what Britain's newest battleship, King George V, could not do alone. They had broken the back of Germany's most modern warship and avenged the loss of HMS Hood. Captain Frederick Dalrymple Hamilton survived the war and was later knighted for his service, while the men of the Fleet Air Arm, who flew their fragile swordfish biplanes through a North Atlantic gale to cripple Bismarck's rudder, would forever be remembered as the ones who made Rodney's final broadside possible. To this day, naval historians still argue over which ship truly won the Battle of the Atlantic's most famous duel, but the numbers speak plainly enough. Broadside for broadside, it was Rodney's leftover guns that hit harder, and it was Rodney's leftover guns that ended Bismarck's story on the morning of the 27th of May, 1941.